Welcome everyone to another episode of Sunday Night Live. This is a very important one for me because I've watched Michele and Pablo for years, and I'm extremely excited that they have decided to come on with us tonight. And we will have them for 1 hour, which is nowhere near long enough. I would like to encourage you to leave your comments. I see a few of you are watching now. When you do leave your comments, we'll stop to answer your questions. We also will, afterwards, those will disappear, but you're welcome to leave comments in the comment section. And I want to remind you that this episode of Living Theosophy Sunday Night Live is in collaboration with the Theosophical Society headquarters in England, London. And for more information on their diploma courses, please click the link that I've included, which will be added in post-production down below. And also I invite you to visit the all-new Virtual Center for Theosophical Studies on Facebook. That is @Theosophical Studies. It's an online institute dedicated to the study of the esoteric teachings and their principles. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the Krotona Institute of Theosophy and Fohat Productions Publishing, worldwide theosophical lecturers. There they are. It is Michele, Shields, Sender, and Pablo Sender. Welcome, you two. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I have a very, oh, sorry. Go ahead, dear. Go ahead.
It's a pleasure to be here with you and all of you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to tell them a little bit about you, and there's a lot of it about you to tell. Pablo joined the Theosophical Society in Argentina back in 1996. 9 years later, he went to South India to work in the archives for 2 years at the international headquarters in Ojai. He then moved to the United States to live and work at the National Center of the Theosophical Society, and that was in Wheaton, Illinois. And he worked in both the library and in education and outreach for 9 years. Michele and Pablo both currently live at the Krotona Institute of Theosophy in Ojai, California, and continue to work for the TSA and the Krotona Library. They give lectures and conduct classes and seminars, I'm sure you're familiar with them, all over the world, both in Spanish and in English. Michele Sender has been a member of the Theosophical Society since 2006. She has lived and worked at the national headquarters of the TSA, and she is currently the president of the Krotona Lodge. Is that correct?
Yes,
currently
yes.
Of the Ojai Lodge, yes. And in addition to speaking and giving classes, she also conducts meditations on site. Pablo's professional background is in science. He's a microbiologist and has a PhD in biological sciences, and Michele has a degree in education. Pablo is also an author. Now, I will include links to these books. His book, An In-Depth Study of H.P. Blavatsky's Teachings, explores the mammoth writings of HPB, mammoth writings, the biggest collection in the last 2,000 years, tracing her teachings and the evolution of the higher consciousness, explaining her frequently obscure 19th century words so the earnest student can grasp their meaning. And it also explores, has 4 chapters devoted to the important application and the practice of these teachings. There will be a link down below to that. Michele and Pablo are also developing the extremely useful Theosophy Wiki, which is fantastic and an incredible resource for students all over the world. They've just recently added the letters from the Masters of the Wisdom with images from the original letters. I will include that link down below too. And the online School of Theosophy, those links will be included, is a joint project between TSA and Krotona that Michele and Pablo started a year ago, available to all around the world for free. Donations are accepted to develop further studies. They offer online programs, webinars, and workshops. And one more here, this is a big one. This is Fohat Productions. This is something that Michele started. It's a publishing company, a theosophical publishing company that is publishing Pablo's books, as well as out-of-print theosophical literature and related projects. Now, Fohat Productions has the evolution of the higher consciousness, and the next 2 books for publications, which we'll ask you about, are the evolution of the higher consciousness, and the intergroup teachings of HPB, and an intro to the secret doctrine. Now that is quite an intro for the 2 of you. Welcome, Michele and Pablo. Did I get all that right? Was that correct?
I just want to make a couple corrections.
Good. Oh,
yes. No. Janet Kirshner and Pablo are the one that is working on the wiki, the Theosophy.
Oh, okay. Yes, Janet. I apologize, Janet. I did not have that in there. Let's give her a shout out. Thank you, Janet.
Yes.
You were wonderful with all that information.
Yeah. And then although I do the little extra cooking and cleaning and picking up while he's working on the online school. I really don't have much to do with that either. So.
Oh, bless. Well, it does take two. It takes two. So it's the online school. How long ago did that start? And can you tell us a little bit about
that? Started going public about a year ago. This is, as you said, a joint project between Krotona and the TSA. And actually, everything I do, I can do it because Michele is always at the background helping, because otherwise I couldn't do so much. Yeah. There is a whole, this is the problem with projects. You always have one face that is more visible, but there is a bunch of people working for everything. In the TSA and in Krotona, to produce things, and the servers and this and that. I'm just the front, face of the projects. But we, as you say, we are just trying to put theosophy out there that has been so helpful in our lives, and we just want to share it with others.
Well, that's what we were talking about before we went live. We were discussing how the platform is meant for the teachings, and you will see familiar faces, and you will see people that are the speakers and the ones behind the scenes. This is simply to share these teachings with the world. These ancient teachings belong to all and solely to none. And the reason I'm sitting here with you is because they've changed my life so much. So I see their value. I want to be of service. I want to help. And I want to help to ease the unnecessary suffering of all beings. Welcome to all of you who are here. Hi, Damon. Damon is here from the TSC. Welcome. Tapestry is here. There's a few of you coming in. And we'll be getting to Petra Meyer is here. Hi, sweetheart Petra from the Blavatsky Lodge. She's watching as well. So there are a few questions I do want to ask, though. Did you meet as Theosophists? Or did you meet through the Theosophical Society, if I may?
Mm-hmm. No.
You did meet.
That's fine. Yes, we met in Wheaton. We were.
Oh, did you?
Yes, we met in Wheaton when we were working there. So
Bless
yeah,
you.
it's a whole.
You had moved a few months before I got to Wheaton.
Yeah.
So
really?
Yeah, met within the Theosophical Society. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. So the passion is between the two of you. Do you live in California now? I was born in San Luis Obispo, California, not far from you. So what a beautiful place to be. And I've watched and seen, like I was talking before we went live, when I took the diploma course, Pablo's DVDs and the lectures that you give, a very familiar face. But as you said, like a front man in a band, you have the Rolling Stones are far more than just Mick Jagger, and you have the stars of a movie, but the credit's gone forever because it takes a lot to put on things. So again, the star of this show and anything done here online is the teaching of Theosophy. So you have the secret doctrine. This is always the text. Let me just ask the two of you really quick. These texts, which you have studied in depth, a lot of people say, yeah, I've read the secret doctrine, but I don't know. I mean, I think it can be absorbed in parts and the application and the study. It is written in layers that are, it's kind of it's a daunting text. It's science, from where you come from, science, it's religion, it's philosophy, it's metaphysics. How would you describe to those who might be coming across this video for the very first time, how would you describe this unbelievable text?
I'm going to start because I came into Theosophy just kind of as a segue. I came into Theosophy without a background in philosophy or religion or anything. I was a teacher, I was a science teacher and a mom. And I met some friends who introduced me to the,
to the Co-Freemasonry.
Yes, Co-Freemasonry. So that's how I got involved with the Theosophical Society. And someone once told me, well, you can't be in the society if you don't read Madame Blavatsky and the Secret Doctrine. So I was like, well.
It wasn't me.
No. And so I was like, well, okay. So I started reading it and I was just like, what is this? I mean, on top of different concepts and different ways that there's different words, and you really have to have some context in order to start reading the Secret Doctrine. in a
Yes.
certain point of view. So that's not where I started. So I started, with Leadbeater and Annie Besant
And HPV biographies.
right, right.
Yeah.
And some fictional novels. Those were a great place for me to start, and then kind of just get a lay of the lay of the land. And then I was able to look at it and then read it, just like you said, sometimes open it up and read it as a
Yeah.
meditation. And so I just wanted to give that little.
Thank you. No, that's perfect and very organic. Mine was the Light on the Path was the first for me, then Voice of the Silence. And then this would probably be lifetimes upon lifetimes of just opening and revisiting. It's just not something that it literally just keeps giving. And I think when people say, oh, have you read The Secret Doctrine? That's a little cheeky question because this is a text of texts. To me, it feels like these teachings, this is the textbook for humanity. How would you describe these writings of HPB, since you have studied it so much? How would you describe them? Some of them say that she's written down the most important texts of the last 2,000 years. And again, she did not come up with them, she wrote them down. How would you describe that to those who are viewing now, please?
Well, I have a view of The Secret Doctrine that even though I love the content, in my view, the content is not necessarily the most important part of The Secret Doctrine. Because what Blavatsky explained to Bowen, who was a student of hers, I know that some people are not sure if Blavatsky wrote that or not, but I see it very compatible with other things that Blavatsky said. She says, this is a book to change your mind, to change the way you perceive reality. So we normally look at reality from a very personal, physical point of view, very limited by many conditionings and concepts. And what The Secret Doctrine is bringing is a view that is, so transcendental that it begins to change you. Even if you don't remember the names, even if you don't remember the sequence of, what happens after what, the fact of trying to conceive the world, as Blavatsky describes it, from that point of view begins to produce a change. So I think that that's of course, the information itself is wonderful, etc. But we know that information per se doesn't change people. It's in helping you to look at things from a different state of consciousness where a change begins to happen.
It's beautifully said. Go ahead.
And this is a hard concept to remember in today's society because we, like you said, people say, did you read The Secret Doctrine? Do you know this? And so it's kind of intimidating when you're up against somebody who is scholarly, who can do that. But to take The Secret Doctrine and to take it as my, secret doctrine, as my practice, then it's very, just like Pablo said, and you're saying, it's very transformative. It's very living. It's very giving. It's, it's there for anyone to pick up. So.
Well, again, very well said. These teachings, though, don't just start when this was written 130 years ago. They are ancient. They are timeless. We can find them in the Kabbalah. We've talked about the alchemies, all of these teachings from the very beginning, Egypt, and you go all the way back to the beginning of time. So again, you mentioned Leadbeater and Besant earlier. Now, when I first started sharing my things, I was eaten alive because I mentioned another author, then HPB, and William Q. Judge, and I was annihilated. But I found that was what helped me get in. And through Yogi Ramacharaka, which is William Walker Atkinson from the New Thought movement, which was pointing towards light on the path, I think that I remember watching something that you'd said that everybody has something to offer. And I think you might have gotten some feedback as well when they might have chewed you up about Leadbeater. I'm not sure, but
I'm never. I know that there are reactions. I never really pay much attention in the sense that, I think that part of the spirit, the theosophical spirit, is about finding truth wherever it is.
Yes.
So, I don't agree with everything that any author says in particular. But I have learned from many authors. So I don't take theosophy as a doctrine that we follow this particular, fixed view. Because
Right.
when you start having, I don't know how to put it, but when you start understanding that words are so limited, that reality cannot be captured in words, you start using words to go to the reality, not words to limit reality. So I don't care if some descriptions seem to be not just the same, because if we were to describe London, for example, probably our descriptions would be very different, and we are still describing the same place. So
Brilliant.
I don't care about that. I just try to see what is useful anywhere. If Leadbeater says, when you think, you have a thought form that is affecting other people, so you have to be careful about what you think, that is wonderful. Whether that was said by Blavatsky, Leadbeater, or the person that is selling fruits, so yeah.
Very well said. Again, this is not an academic journey. If you're watching this, we've had a mathematician on, she's watching now. We've had, he's got a PhD in science. This is not, as from my understanding, an intellectual or an academic journey at all. This is something that is done through the application, which you talk about in your text, about applying the teachings that is learned in Theosophy in your daily life. It's kind of a way of being. Could you expand a little bit about that when you talk in your classes about people want to study and say what they've learned and memorize things? It's completely different when it's actually applied to self. Can you expand a little bit about that? So we can understand if somebody does decide to pick up Light on the Path or Voice of the Silence and begin, or anywhere, the key to Theosophy, to apply them. Would you have any advice?
I just, first I would say that the intellectual part is what gets me to do the other work. Because if I don't fully understand the whole system or where it comes from, I'm not one just, go do this. So I find that I understand the practice and I can do the practice, but as soon as I get that little piece of intellectual information that settles in my brain, that settles, I'm like, oh, okay, now I can put maybe all my energy into this type of meditation or this type of work. So there is some need, or for me at least, my way of learning starts with the intellectual part per se, or kind of just moves in the same as along with it.
Yeah, I think what we all agree is that Theosophy is not merely an intellectual endeavor. Obviously, Theosophy thought, or the early Theosophical teachers thought that right understanding is essential to transform our lives. And they gave a lot of information, very detailed, very complex. Because my experience is similar, when I can fully understand something, then all my being is ready to do it, to apply it. If Jesus said, love each other, love those who hate you. And if you don't understand why, it's difficult to do it. Then Theosophy comes with all this explanation, and you are convinced, your mind is convinced, and then you start trying to live that way. The problem is when people stop only at the point of having the menu read to them, but never eating.
Right.
So yeah. So I think in my classes, I always try to work on both things, trying to make the concepts as clear and compelling as possible, and encourage, okay, the only way this is going to be useful beyond giving you mental satisfaction is to try to apply them.
Well said. Well said. You joined in 1996. What was it that brought you to Theosophy for you, Pablo? What was the one thing you went, that's it, that's what I'm looking for?
Yes, I was trying to learn how to meditate, and I was about 20, and I had always studied spirituality through books. I read Ramacharak and many other books, and then I wanted to learn how to meditate, and I just bought a couple of books and tried to do it, and discovered how hard meditation is. So talking to my mom that I wanted to find a group or meditation group. At the time in the city, I lived in a smaller city, there was nothing, but my mom knew about the TS because her yoga teacher was a member of the TS. And so she said, there is an organization, they meet and they study these things. So she took me there, and they were giving a class on meditation, on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. But I think I fell in love first with the library. When I saw the library and all the books that I was looking for. And then when they invited me to the lodge, and before I became a member, they saw that I was interested. And they were studying the Mahatma letters, letter number 10 in the older editions. That is the one where they say God doesn't exist, the anthropomorphic God.
Mm-hmm.
And that just blew my mind. I thought, this is what I'm looking for. And my first approach to theosophy was purely intellectual. I was in college. I thought this is a system of philosophy. And little by little, with my relationship with other members, I started discovering the value of the practice.
That's wonderful, because I wondered how you got to be there when I know that I was looking all of my life. I've been looking for it. And when I found it, like we said before we went live, I said, to me, it just feels like the Holy Grail. It truly does. It's not, it's something, it's for all of us. It's not something that's unattainable. It's here, it's available. These links to these books or wherever, it's free, and you can find out about it. And when you apply it and you feel it, you can't help but also possibly be as excited as we are about it. We've got a few folks saying, hi, Gary Kidgell's here. Gary's sending his love to you. Gary was on a few weeks ago. He'll be on again. He's got a new book coming out. Amazing esoteric astrology. We love you, Gary. Dominic is coming in. Let's see. He says, and I haven't pre-read this, the doctrine and the veil of the secret unknown will be lifted to express in the known for one, growth and awareness. Okay. Saying maybe been in many other lifespans and many ages being in the works. Yes, I would have to say, agree with that. Many lifespans. Theosophy teaches us about other lives, reincarnation, karma, the universe, there's nothing that it doesn't cover. Do you find, I know you're in circles that are quite theosophical, but when you come across someone who asks you the question, what is theosophy? What is your answer?
I found that that's more or less my my way of interacting is one-on-one. I have 3 children, and when I was living in Wheaton, they were in high school. And so in Wheaton, everybody knows about the Theosophical Society, as well as Wheaton College, which is a Christian college there. So
quite fundamentalist.
Right. So you have these, yes. Who's the guy?
Billy Graham.
It's Billy Graham's college. It's kind of one with Brigham Young. So people would say, oh, I'd be at a basketball game or a soccer game. Oh, where do you live? Oh, we live on the grounds of the Theosophical Society. I never hesitated it just kind of like came out. And so it was a huge bridge for me I felt it was my duty to kind of bridge that gap of what people thought of the Theosophical Society, and that this person, this mom who has 3 kids who look like everybody else, is out there. So it was really interesting. So I always just said, we're a spiritual organization. We work to bring the best out of us. We work to study whatever religion or philosophy that you're studying. We have this wonderful library so that you can study it deeper and wider. And so I felt it was a nice way to bring it out into the regular world. Now, the people that talk to Pablo are more seekers, from a philosophical background or no theosophy. So his answers are usually much different.
No, but I think that's a good point. Normally people are, they can value the idea of the second object, the idea of doing a broad study of philosophy, religion, and science, and try to see what everywhere is good for humanity. And the idea of freedom of thought also, first saying we don't have any dogma, there are teachings, but you can. So normally what I try to emphasize is the idea of divine wisdom. I explained that theosophy comes, from theosophia, which means divine wisdom, which means in the theosophical view, in all of us, there is a divine seed that is the source of wisdom, a wisdom that is not by the accumulation of information or experience in the world. It's an inner wisdom that makes you be a nice, wise, loving person. And theosophy is the pursuit of that. How can we become aware of that divine aspect in ourselves that makes us wise and loving? So that's what we try to do in the TS.
If you were to boil down theosophy into one word, what would it be?
Oh,
I lean toward wisdom.
I was going to say.
Yeah,
I
you
was just
too?
going to say inner wisdom, but that's too
Oh,
Yeah,
much.
because
that's okay. That's okay.
And Pablo will say wisdom.
because love could also be a description, but normally for most people, love is connected to other things that may not be wise necessarily. We can hurt people, out of love. So my particular view is that if you are wise in the true meaning of wise, you are loving, you are compassionate, you are.
Yeah.
Compassion.
Going back to the love, I had somebody call one time, and it's funny, I used to work at the information desk in Wheaton. So I greeted everybody and I got all the questions. And it seems like I had a bunch of recovering Catholics, and I could always say, yes, I'm with, and Pablo too. And
Totally.
so so one girl called me once and said, why is God in all these writings? And I said, what if you just replaced it with love? And it was just like I had, enlightened her right then and there. But it did, it makes a lot of sense going back to, how that love is. If we have a true sense of love and not love as two bodies, if we
Right.
have.
Or love as opposed to hate, I love this and hate that. A
Yes.
love that is, the true embracing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good definition.
Would you consider yourselves empathic? Is this more of do you feel an empathic, what I call a crushing compassion, a connection with other beings to help ease the suffering, to try to want to do something, even though people go, how can I change the world? And my answer to my son, who's 21, you got to change yourself. You got to start here. He's like, Mom, how do we change the world? And it's do you feel that compassion to wish to be of service? Obviously you do. But when you speak of the love, a lot of people think of romantic love. They think of familial love. They think of love for an idol, or love for a way of life, but an all-encompassing love. That compassion, to describe that to someone, I know you understand. I have a difficult time because other people say, not everybody thinks like that, Anne. A lot of people don't think like that. You're crazy. And so I said, no, I feel it. There's something there, this empathic, I'm not sure. I know that these young people that are coming and saying that they're empaths, I would like to direct them to Theosophy. I'd like to hashtag them in here because I think that they would find a lot of purpose. Would you relate the word empath to?
Yes, I would say yes to a certain extent, but I would say for me, it's not this, what I think of as this gushing love for society or love. I have so much anger inside of me for so long, just that frustrated raising 3 kids mom thing. You love your kids, but unless they're sleeping, I don't have that gushing love for them.
I understand.
So that's what I mean by that. So for me, it's kind of a more of a compelling, I found inside of me, I have this compelling nature to do my duty or to do what I think is my responsibility. So that's
Yeah.
what propels me
I mean,
to.
Michele always talks about herself in that way, but what struck me when I met her in Wheaton is that she would always give up to anything to help anybody. So she was excited with, her son was in the band and there was going to be a parade in the city, and she was planning the parade for days. And then I go to the parade and she's not there. And the son is going, and she's not there because she saw a friend of his that was Africa. He came from Africa, and he was poor. And she went back and got the kid to take him to the parade, and she missed the parade.
Oh,
And that always, I think the problem is that many people who are sensitive, it's easy to be hurt by too much sensitivity. And that's why I prefer to define, again, theosophy as wisdom rather than compassion. For what reason? Because too much compassion is not good. I think you can have more compassion than wisdom, and then it's difficult to deal with the world. And I think I remember when I was young, at one point I remember feeling I cannot live in the world because wherever I go, I just feel everything that is there. I can't deal with the world. And Theosophy helped me a lot to gain some more poise. So I think we all have a lot of compassion, and we just try to learn how to deal with it. It's hard to be sensitive.
Yeah,
That's
and
very
I was just going to say, and I brought that up because a lot of times I feel like if I wait for me to have that compassion or that love feeling in my heart, I wouldn't move very fast because it doesn't feel like it's there. So
yeah, but why did you do that, for example, and go get Joshua?
Just out of duty.
That's
and I know that's
love. That's
right.
love.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But it doesn't feel like love for me. So if I hear something that is, you have to have love to do this. When we have love, I just don't feel like I would. I don't know. To me, it feels more like a sense of duty than it does coming from love. But we always have this.
I think we all come to this particular place from our own different path, because like you said, looking at London or looking at the sun, we would explain where we see it from. It's setting over here, but it's rising over where you are, but we're still looking at the same one. So all of us getting to this point from our own position. I wanted to ask about if you could, and this is a question I always wanted to ask my guests, but I thought I'd ask you guys, if you could have dinner with anyone, living or dead, in this movement, I know. I have different answers than I have a few years ago. I'm interested through the writers, through all of the ones who have come, through the avatars, who would you choose to spend the evening with?
We've had this conversation many times, and Pablo.
Have you really?
Yes.
I would
Is it
definitely.
the same answer?
Yeah, well, I would definitely choose HPV. For what she represents, for her personality, for I think it would be wonderful.
I would choose Annie Besant, just because I love the work she did, her social justice work that she did. So
yeah, she was also an impressive person.
Yeah.
Isn't that something? Wouldn't that be wonderful? In a way, we do get a chance to see a little bit about who and where and what they are and what they have written and what they've shared. But it would be interesting to sit with them face to face, wouldn't it?
What about you?
Yeah, who would be yours?
Oh, that's a very good question. I would say Buddha. Buddha would be mine if it would go all the way back to the avatars.
Yeah.
That's who I would like to sit and go, tell me all about it. I would love that. I would like that. But as far as the theosophical writers, I mean, HPB, the amount of stuff that came through was just so massive. That would be absolutely fascinating. But I always, if I'm asked that question, Buddha is my answer to that.
I would say Alcott too, now that I think
Really?
because I'm reading about him now, and he had such a good heart, and his actions weren't always the most appropriate. And I guess I feel like sometimes,
Identified.
yeah, I identify with that. So,
Oh.
you know, he just makes a mistake in eloquence. He wasn't always very eloquent, or he thought he was doing the right thing. And, you know,
Like it is said, like the whole, SPR, that the Society for Psychical Research, getting
Yes.
angry at the TS. It was something that Alcott said, and that, set off the people there. Of course, that was going to happen no matter what. But he was trying to defend the society, and that happens to all
right,
of us, right?
right.
Yeah.
But we're human, are we not? As Theosophists, we are totally human. And sometimes I forget that. I always think if you get here, surely you would be in the application and be a better individual. But we make human mistakes, and we're very human, and we can only do the best that we can. And then we evolve and be better than what we once were before. So on our journeys. And then let's see, certainly now with what's going on, real quick before we go into that, I wanted to see, Dominic is saying, Michele, were you able to be the observer of that type of emotion and love, unconditional? Dominic is asking, again, a personal question here about, will you be, as if you don't feel that that might be where you're coming from, surely you can observe that love, the unconditional love, as a mother.
Right. I always say I am painfully self-aware of what goes on inside of me at every moment in time.
Yeah. No, I think it's a question of definition. If we go, if we go to technical aspects, the Buddhic nature is beyond thoughts and is beyond emotions. The Buddhic nature itself is not an emotion. When the Buddhic nature reflects itself on the emotional body, let's say the astral body, then it may produce an emotion. Just as we can access Buddhi from a silent mind, it's also from a silent emotion. So many times the Buddhic influence doesn't necessarily translate in a concept or in an emotion. And when we think of love, we are thinking about a particular kind of emotion.
And if we don't have those concepts or those emotions, a lot of times we think what we're doing is wrong, or we think, I'm not on the right path. I'm not all loving and caring. How can I be on the spiritual path and not feel, oneness? I know people who can't even say, they're so filled with love, they can't even say the word hate or enemy, and so
personalities are different.
Right. That's what I mean. That's why I brought that up, just because our personalities, even within Pablo and I, are very different.
I appreciate you bringing that up. It's very honest and an organic answer. And thank you for that, because it would be ridiculous for us to think that if we're studying theosophy, that we have to be this perfect, saintly individual. Then there is no work to be done. I mean, the mistakes that we make and the things that we can observe and self-reflect is so important. There's lifetimes of work to do in this lifetime. So the fact that you're able to be that self-aware is quite refreshing. Thank you. Lyndon and Tapestry are writing in that their word that they would describe theosophy would be enlightenment. That's a very insightful answer. And a lot of people think, what is enlightenment? I would have to say my answer might be different than yours or other people's. I would have to say it's a journey. I can't really say it's actually something that is there right now all the time, because I'm learning every day how little I actually know. But the light and enlighten, to bring that light out into the world by changing yourself, is important. How would you describe the word enlightenment?
Yeah, again, it's a word that was used in different contexts, like the Enlightenment, during the Renaissance and all of this. But in the spiritual context, let's say in a theosophical context, I think enlightenment is a good translation of what Blavatsky calls manas taijasa. The word taijasa means light or brilliant. And she described the mind that is being illumined by the Buddhic nature, a mind that is perceiving from the place of unity, from the place of wisdom / love and compassion, all that. So enlightenment is when our mental perception is a vehicle of that divine wisdom. That's perhaps how I would describe it.
Well, thank you very much. I know that you've done many videos. It's just so surreal in a way. I wish Robert Kitto were here because he's a huge fan of your work. When we were learning the diploma course, you taught me many of the elementary principles, and to understand what he's talking about, if you're new to this, about the Buddhic nature and the manas, the mind, the vehicle of the Atma, all of these things are explained. Again, it is science, philosophy, and spirituality. It is ancient. It is not something that you have to try to master, but if you're interested in any of this resonates with you and you're understanding, you're listening about compassion and love and service and duty, all of these things that we're sharing here in the Theosophical teachings, it's so refreshing not to have to explain what is Theosophy. It's wonderful to see. I know what you're doing. I know you're out there all over the world carrying this message forth, and I see a resurgence. Do you recognize in this current time, do you see more reception for the Theosophical teachings than previously in your career? Or is it just because we're doing it so much together? Maybe that's all I do, is Theosophy is all I do. Maybe it could be wishful thinking on my part, but do you think that the world is tired of the churches and perhaps looking for something more?
Yeah, I do. I would say even in the short time that I've been, since I started at Wheaton, I saw a lot of change. I saw a lot of change with how my kids' friends were able to see the similarities more than the differences. There's a school now on the grounds of the Theosophical Society in Wheaton. So that's open to all those people that were there. So I see that just from kind of like a structural standpoint, that is opening up, or has opened up, just in the short 15 years that I've been around.
And I think there was all this new age explosion, and many people were interested in that. And because, of course, new age is very heterogeneous, so it's difficult to define it. But I would say, because many of the teachings are very simplistic, they are not very effective. They are easy to grasp, but they don't have a lot of power either to explain reality or your experience. We can say, yes, if you think right, you will never be ill. And that is a simplification, because there is previous karma, there are many things. But I think that now that people had some experience with the new age, those who see the limitations of it, but are still interested, they are coming more to the theosophical tradition. And I think that is happening. And of course, the internet, being able to do this on YouTube has brought theosophy to many people, to thousands of people that I think in my whole career before internet, I didn't speak to as many people as the least watched of my videos. You see, the reach is so much wider that, I think we are seeing that.
Do you believe that the New Age movement is cherry picked? And I'm guilty of saying this, from the Theosophical teachings. It looks to me as though from the 70s, when I don't know, I'm trying to think of Carlos Castaneda and all these different things, taking these pieces out and holding them up, and then they're kind of missing, like you said, their structure. To me, it just seems like that's something that came in that time period of the middle of the last century. And they are all explained in the teachings of Theosophy, all of it. The astral plane, the elemental spirits. You're looking at all the levels of everything that ever was is explained in the teachings of Theosophy. But the New Age movement, in a way, is kind of like a little introduction, maybe, to the teachings of Theosophy.
Oh yeah, no, I think I don't think the New Age movement popped up out of nowhere. I think it was a gradual moving away from what was core in Theosophy, or deeper in Theosophy. And so, when you move away from that, you tend to get more self-serving. So I actually got interested in spirituality through the New Age movement, Deepak Chopra.
Wayne Dyer.
The Celestine prophecy and
yes.
So But then there was something in me that looked at that and saw its limitation, saw its
Yes, I
self-serving
understand.
nature. I think when Deepak Chopra wrote about money, how to get money or power, I something said, I think this is, there's got to be more than this. And probably just because I tried it and failed. If I would have tried to gather abundance and money, I would have stayed with it. But when I tried it, it didn't work. So I was like,
Well,
well,
hey, like, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
no,
I'm so sorry.
go ahead. No, that was
I
just
was
it.
I was just going to say that those new age authors, Hay House cranked them out like rock stars, just have them with a book and then cards and then speaking, and they're teaching this wisdom of the ages. But where is the origin of this teaching? And I can see it very clearly in the teaching of Theosophy.
Right.
Petra has written, she's saying, HPB said in Collected Writings 10, page 242, that Theosophy is the occult hygiene of mind and body, the unlearning of false beliefs, and the acquisition of true habits of thought by its students. Well said. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you,
Petra is what's that? I'm sorry.
No. I was just going to say, I always think of when you talked about enlightenment or theosophy, that it's more of a verb than it is a noun or a place. Or so an action, yeah.
Yes, and Tapestry, who is a statistician and a mathematician, she was on a couple weeks ago. She says, I find the theosophical teachings exhaustive and comprehensive. It is home. It has everything. And she was one of the first ones I've ever heard who described the teachings as home. Isn't that a beautiful way of looking at them?
Absolutely.
Home.
Absolutely. Yes.
In the situation that is taking place today, we're looking at, there is a lot of change going on. There's a lot of, well, I mean, there's always been change going on. Perhaps we can just see it more because we're connected with each other. Where do you see Theosophy, since we're looking at the commonalities of all the world's religions, sciences, and philosophies, in our future, when we are long gone, you and I are gone, what is your hope for the future of these teachings and the mankind that is to come and the earth life that is to come? What is your hope for that?
I absolutely love from man, whence, whither, and how. I hope I got all those in the right order. The view of the coming of the next evolutionary stage. That it to me, it just seems home. That's what it seems is home there, and that now by the seeds.
Describe it a little.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So that the environment is more tropical. The homes don't have walls on them. We're not learning facts anymore. We have machines, which we already have, to find facts when we need it. That we're not this is my family, but it's more of a community based living style. And I think that the seeds that we are planting today, by just what we're doing, sharing the living power of Theosophy, we're planting these seeds that will hopefully grow into what's to come.
Yeah, that is basically a change between a model based on competition to one based on cooperation. That I think.
Yes, well said. Well said. Can you repeat that again? Can you repeat that? It was so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's switching from a model based on competition to one based on cooperation. And I think that's where the theosophical teachings lead. And when, this idea of the six sub-rays, etc., this sixth evolutionary period that Michele was talking about, it's basically the triumph of cooperation and sharing over what we are experiencing right now.
Yes, and we have all of these religions, fighting with each other about which one is more loving. And we've been doing this for a very long time. I believe that as we're talking about the objectives of Theosophy, we've talked a lot about that, is to look for the commonalities in all of these. And you will see the embers of theosophy. And there is hope for humanity. I do believe, I don't know if I said this to you or not, that this is humanity's textbook. I mean, in a way, not just this, but the teachings of theosophy, but this is a pretty powerhouse, a big powerhouse that was written down 130 years ago, but it is timeless. So a lot of people say, oh, that's that thing that started at the, in London and the East Coast in the 19th century. It's far more than that. How would you describe the timelessness of it? I know that it's been quoted as it antedates history, that it goes back before time, and it explains things that we've only been, like the pyramids. I mean, all of these, Atlantis, all of these things that we are guessing at with our modern science, and you're a modern scientist. How would you explain the timelessness of this ancient wisdom? And other than, it's not just HPB. That's one of the things I want to try to get across. It's been around forever. How would you explain that to those that are watching who want to say that it's only 19th century?
No, Dara Tatre did a talk, a webinar.
She's from Australia. Theosophy is from Australia.
She did a talk and linked. Was it? And you'll have to fill in because I forget. But linked things back to the Vedas and the Puranas and the Upanishads. And to me, it was very, to listen to this webinar that she gave was very eye-opening to know that, yes, it doesn't just start in 1875. It didn't start there. Or it didn't even start with the Neoplatonists, but that there are teachings that underlie this that are, like, to me, timeless.
Mm-hmm. I think it's easy to understand this if we, for example, think of mathematics. A person in the Middle East, or a person in China, a person in India, they all discover the same mathematical facts, and Pythagoras in Greece, because these are facts of nature. If you think in the correct way, you will come to the same discovery. And I think the ancient wisdom is exactly the same, but on a spiritual plane. If you can, instead of thinking, if you can, go be in silence in a higher state of consciousness, you begin to discover these facts of nature as people discover the facts of math. So the Hindus or the early people with the Vedas did that, and in Africa and in the Americas, because these are facts of nature. So it's just a question of developing the ability to perceive those truths. As humanity today, we are more or less intellectual so that we can perceive mathematical truths. Not most people can perceive spiritual truths yet. So they have to believe what somebody else says. But eventually, perhaps in the next evolutionary stage, most people will be able to perceive spiritual truths as we do with the mathematical truths.
Very well said. Very well said. It is also said in our objectives that there are undiscovered laws of nature and the powers latent in the human being. I will be honest, on this channel, most people come in just like they do to the New Age bookshops for the psychic experience. A lot of people, that's what they want to have. I don't cast a spell, I have psychic powers. And again, we've talked about that a lot. There are, and there is much more to us than just what the five senses tell us. And nature is the true church. And being a biologist and spending all of your time in the theosophical teachings, what would you tell those who are watching? I mean, as we walk around and we look at what we're doing to our planet, we're literally cannibalizing it to build gold ceilings and buildings and separate. What can we do to help? And how can we learn more? What would you suggest that folks do to be able to get in touch with nature and perhaps try to listen better?
Yeah, it's hard for example, a good aspect of psychism is that most people are sensitive to unseen aspects of life that the five senses don't bring. So we see a tree and we just see wood to make a table, People who have psychic sensitivity may see some much more life there in the tree. Of course, the psychic realm has a lot of difficulties too. We eventually want to develop spiritual intuition. But I would say to people who are not psychic in particular, and people who are not spiritual in particular, I think if any rational person, by rational I mean a person willing to think, to ponder over the world, if you sit down, you can realize that there is no way we can live unless we start taking care of the environment. Now, right now, it's undeniable. You know, the environment has come to a place where it is undeniable unless you don't want to see it. And there are some people like that. But even without, you know, a psychic sense, without a spiritual inspiration, we are one with the planet. There is no escape from it. And I believe that what is happening with the environment is forcing people to accept it. And I with all the bad aspects that this brings, this is how humanity learns, is when we are faced with the problem that we say, okay, I have to accept this fact.
Whether I like it or not. Sorry, go ahead, dear.
Exactly.
I would just add that because trying to explain to this, we have a 28-year-old, a 24-year-old, and a 22-year-old are our three children, my three children. But I would say to them, what I try to tell them is, because if I start talking about love and compassion and understanding, you know, this tree is more than just wood, they just look at me like, yeah, okay.
I
But
understand.
yeah, but so what I try to at least tell them or give them a really sharp, short thing to do is to listen more, to pause more, because we seem to be a society as a whole that you need to move. If you're not moving, if you're not quick, if you're not on top of it, if you're not doing, then you're behind the eight ball. You're losing. If you're not in front, you're lost. So if we can take a step back and we can listen and we can pause and we can open up our minds to maybe I'm not always right, then I think that is a first step for people who aren't, like you said, of a psychic nature or a spiritual nature, who have been raised. I tell my son just the other day, I feel like I've put him at a disadvantage, that I no longer, I've taught them enough about spirituality that they're, what did he say? He goes, oh, Mom, you told me to pay attention. So now I'm paying attention to everything. And I'm like, I got anxiety about it. So I've taken them out of that world, that competitive world, but they don't have quite enough tools to understand the spiritual teachings. And so they're in this quasi area of, you know, what do I do? So listen and pause is what we've kind of been talking about.
Very good advice. Very good advice. And I can't believe the hour has flown by. It feels like 5 minutes. I can't believe that. Is there anything I wanted to talk about the books that are coming out, also Fohat, and I wanted to speak about the online School of Theosophy. Was I correct when I said that it's free and donations are accepted? Is that correct? Yes. Okay. I will put the link down below. It is the online School of Theosophy, which is a brilliant idea because it offers their, I believe, I wanted to talk about this with you. I think I saw Eben Alexander on there. Did you have is he doing a class, or was there a seminar with Eben on there?
He's doing some lectures and webinars, not necessarily in connection with the online school. Okay. Eventually, we may create a course, because the idea with the online school is to generate self-paced courses. You know, we have a lot of webinars, talks that people may not be able to attend at the time. Then they can watch them on YouTube. And all that is very useful, what we are doing here right now. But also, we wanted to provide an education that would engage the student some more. So there are videos that people have chapters or articles to read. There are quizzes so that they can evaluate their own understanding. There are meditative exercises, and all of this is self-paced. You take it and you go along as you can. So what we normally do is that webinars or lectures that were given before for the TSA, then we turn them into a course in the online school and add resources and add more videos and audios and articles, etc., and the quizzes. So it's a way to try to provide something that involves more the student more
and a little
actively.
more structure.
And,
instead of
yes.
just pulling random videos out from places, a little more structure.
That's also an important
Yeah.
part of it, is trying to because the typical thing that you hear from people is there is so much, how do I start?
Right, how do you start? Yeah.
You know, the course in England that they have been doing, the diploma, that's also very helpful. People need some structure, especially at the beginning.
And we'll include the links to all of that down below. Again, that is the Online School of Theosophy, theosophical.org, study.theosophical.org, but don't worry, links will be down below. I did want to, I know we're coming up on the hour. I just want to see if we can squish this question in. One of my favorite things is to talk about the near-death experiences like Eben Alexander speaks about and how they come back and validate all of that. What are your thoughts on the near-death experience and the out-of-body experiences when they come back and they say basically what are in these texts?
Yeah, they are a great tool to support these teachings. I agree. Yeah, you see, this was written over 100 years ago, and you see that people are saying they do actually experience these things. Now, in the near-death experience, you just see the very beginning because you are not actually dead. So if you see in these teachings, you have the whole map that can help us.
Oh, and there's so much to learn. Like we said, lifetimes upon lifetimes. It has been an honor of magnificent proportions to have you both here. Thank you so much, Michele and Pablo. Again, links will be in after post-production, and you can reach them. The new book, I know you have a couple coming out. You were talking about the evaluation of the higher consciousness. That is up on Fohat Publications, is it not? Fohat, oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. So I will have the links for that. And you have coming out the Inner Group Teachings of H.P. Blavatsky and an Intro to the Secret Doctrine. Do you have a date for those yet that we can put those, or just direct them to Fohat?
We don't dare do dates anymore.
I understand.
I went with the first book and that didn't work. But our first priority is Pablo's book on the secret doctrine, which is called Approaching the Secret Doctrine, an introduction to cosmogony. Yeah. I believe, unless we change it. But so that we're hoping to be out, let's say, by the end of the year.
There you go. That's a loose enough one, but we're looking forward to that.
And we are just proofreading it, but all that takes time. But that will be hopefully in the fall.
Yeah. So, and then the intergroup teachings. The intergroup teachings, we are working on that. That is a pretty big task, but we're hoping that will be out, within a year. Because once we finish this, then we'll tackle that. And we have a couple books on Franz Hartmann that have been translated from German to English.
Well done.
So we have a few of those that we have in the queue.
And they can get to those through the Fohat link as well. So they can go, oh, wonderful. I can't thank you enough. Thank you. Let's just say thank you to the folks who are here. Thank you, Gary. Thank you to Tapestry, sorry. Dominic and Kurt is always here every weekend. Thank you so much, Kurt. Hi, Pat. Thank you very much. Aren't they fantastic? I know they're lovely. Make sure you follow the links down below. I'm saying that you're fantastic to them because they enjoyed your interview. You sustained a very healthy audience here, and I appreciate you being here. I just wish I could hug you. I am so grateful for the work that you do, and it is an honor to walk the path with you. I cannot wait until the day that our paths actually cross, and I get to embrace you properly. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. And thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. We are all in this together, and we're all doing the exact same thing of service. I'm here to be of service, to try to help to share these teachings in whatever way that I can. And I probably will cross your path because we're doing the same thing all over the world. Would love to have you come stay with us here in the Southwest. We're down below London, about 5 hours south, but we do have a little downstairs area that's a B&B. So maybe and come stay. So that would be really lovely. All the love in the world to California. And thank you again for your time. So thank you everybody for being here. I don't see, oh wait, let's see. Oh, okay, there we go. I think that's about it. I don't think, thank you. Hi, Lucia, and thank you, Penny.
Bye.
Thank you. Oh, bless you. Lots of thanks coming in, and I will see you again later. Mwah, mwah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Fantastic night. Thank you. Bye, you guys. Bye.